And Dr. Tehmina, I'd like to move on to you. And since we traveled together to the ceasefire line in Azad Kashmir, and I got to know a couple of things about your work, I'm first of all glad that your PhD thesis was on the role of women in countering violent extremism. And I'm glad to also know that you come from a village in Punjab, which is a province in Pakistan. And you come from a village where you come from a family that has certain influence, and your father being an important person in that village, and you exploit it and you use this opportunity of coming from an influential family and having a father who has a say in the affairs of the village to help the less fortunate women of the village stand up to husbands who beat them. And you went against decades or centuries of tradition. In your village, as I understand, women used to take it as part of the culture that men are allowed and can beat women in any way they want. And you countered that, and you empowered these women from your village. And you had a father actually who agreed with your work, and then you went. So when you began your PhD study into the role of women and girls in countering violent extremist ideas and ideologies, you did it with a passion, as I understand when I discussed this with you before the event. So I would like you to tell us about the research that you did and the conclusions that you reached.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much, Ahmed, for having me here. As you started with me, so I will speak on role of Pakistani women in violent extremism. As Ahmed told, I belong to a village where even 5 to 6% men are educated. There is no concept of girls' education, women education. And when I was 13 years old, I was not enrolled in any school. I was enrolled in a madrasa, and I said I want to go to school like my brothers, but I was told no, there is no concept of women education in that place. So you should better go for Hifzul Quran, learning of Holy Quran. So I said okay. I learned Holy Quran by heart. I am Hafze Quran, and I was 13 years old, and I was done with that. I asked my father what next I should do, and I was told by my grandmother, now go for translation of Holy Quran. But madrasa teacher said that she is not at an age where she can understand the context of Quran Pak and all these things. But later on, after the death of my grandmother, I was enrolled in school, but I was 14 years, and it was impossible to sit in class 2 or 3. I was directly forced to sit in class 7, and I felt problem of understanding, but somehow I managed. But later on, how my journey, it was a very tough journey, but it took me 5 years to understand the basic concept of education. And from second year to onward, I am first position holder in all my universities, Punjab University, Qaid Azam University, Government College University. And the problem, number one, I felt first, I was, I think, 7 to 8 years old when my father was on Hajj, and my great elder brother of my father, he slapped my mother, and I was very hurt, shocked, and I held his hand, don't beat my mother. And he just picked me and threw me somewhere else. But this was a changing concept in my mind that this practice should be amended in Pakistan. Men has no right to beat women, and women should not think that it is the right of men to beat them. In my village, as I told Ahmed 3 to 4 years back, my maid was applying oil on my hair. Her son came and said, Baba is calling you. She said, ask your father, wait for some time. And then he again called her. I said, go, maybe there is an emergency. But after 10 minutes, I heard some noises, and when I went to their servant quarter, that maid of mine, she was my friend. She was on earth, and his husband, her husband was pulling her from her hairs, and he was beating and slapping on his face. I was really shocked. It really hurted me, and I went there. I held him from his collar. I slapped him, immensely slapped him, 15 to 16 or 17. Later on with legs, whatever I had in my hands. At that time, I felt I am extremist. My reaction was abrupt, but the woman whose husband was beating her, she requested me, "Baji, please, इसे छोड़ दें, leave him." But I went to my father. I said, "How you are such an influential man in the village when such practice is going on?" At that day, I decided I will play my role in countering violent extremism among women by male members of the society. I decided and I asked my father, I want to start education in my village, but my father said people will not go for it, and most of my relative said you will not get future maids if you got them educated. I said I am okay with that. I don't need. I enrolled 78 girls in my two-room school, and I went to each house and I convinced them. But few said we are poor and we can't manage them. Initially, my maternal family lives in Italy, and I requested my 5 to 7 cousins, please, please, please send me 10,000 monthly. I requested each one, my friends, and I collected some fund, and I gave 500 to each 78 girls' mothers. So they are still getting education in my organization, and I am working on them. Later on, I educated each woman of my village. It is not right. It is not in our destination to be beaten by men. Raise voice for yourself. Now, believe me, whenever you will visit my village, no woman is beaten by their husband, their brother, or their father. They raise their voice, they tell them they are not one to be beaten. So, I am the only woman of my family who is into academia and all these things. And my main concern is to highlight the situation of women, especially in village. In Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad, we know women are empowered and men are also understanding. They do not go for this practice. But in village, it is very common, where it is considered a man's pride to beat their women and all these things. Later on, when I started all this in Lahore, I am also involved with Imperial Majesty, and they are working on a de-radicalization program. I came here in Lahore, and I am working on. There was a concept that Islamabad is for strategic studies, counterterrorism, security studies, and all this. But we brought security studies to Lahore as well. I started my work 3 years back in the field of counterterrorism, and I invited various institutions. I brought military to Lahore, I brought police to Lahore, Naval War College we invited, and everyone else. I taught in Canadian College, and Ahmed is on social media with me. He knows how I have changed the mindset of my female student. They all are empowered. In 3 years, if I, who was not allowed to go to school, can change the mindset of such a huge population of the society, why can't other women of our society play their role? But I will also appreciate that in Pakistan, women also working in this field. As we can see in NECTA, a previous DG, Mariam Khan played a very active role.
This is a counter-terrorism.
Yes, in countering terrorism. And she was one of the excellent officer in whole counter-terrorism force. And now we can see that SP, women SPs are deployed in Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad, and they are fighting, you can say, so high abroad. When there was attack on Chinese embassy in Karachi, she dealt with all that stuff. So there is, I always hear that women are vulnerable, women are like this. I don't think so. Women are just As it is said, men fight wars, women win them. Believe me, women win them. And how they win them? You can see in Islamabad there are think tanks, mostly they are headed by women. Dr. Maria Sultan, Madam Farid Asif, if I am not wrong.
Dr. Shri Mazari at one
Shri
point.
Mazari, and they all are very active in security studies. So in Pakistan, now academia is in security study is going to be dominated by women. As you can see in Lahore, it is dominated by women, and they are playing their role. And secondly, in Pakistan, various youth initiatives are taken in de-radicalization program, in rising trend of intolerance in Pakistan. I am working on Interior Ministry with a rising trend of intolerance among Pakistani youths. We are dealing with them, and we have seen that female population of the society is less intolerant as compared to male population of the society. And why they are like that? Again, it is all started from home. When there is a discrimination on dining table, that first male member of the family should start with that, and later on female. And in our family, there is discrimination. Mother always wish for son's birth. And last month, my sister was blessed with a baby boy, and every woman from village came to our house and said now she is cured in
life.
And I said why she is cured? Because she is mom of a so she is considered a woman in Pakistan is considered more powerful after giving birth to a son. So my concept is I am not anti-male. Even though I have very good male friends. In fact, I have no best female friends. My all friends are male, and I have no. I am not allergic to men, but I say there should not be discrimination when we talk about gender equality. I am not talking about that in gender equality. I don't want if my brother is coming home at 11 p.m. at night, I should also come at 11. If my brother is drinking, I should drink that. I'm not asking for that gender equality. Gender equality in the sense women are given their right. And I want to discuss a point. Last year, I did interviews of Christian community of Pakistan. I am working on community resilience development, and I came to know so many tragic stories that I could not sleep for a week, and I have to use medicine for sleeping. And these stories were women of Johanna Bath and Joseph Kaluni.
It's a very poverty-stricken area.
Yes, poverty-stricken, and almost all male member of their family were victim of terrorism, violent extremism. And when I interviewed those women, and I said, "How you are managing the economic affairs of your family, of your household?" I came to know many tragic stories, and how they say that in their heart they feel the feeling of revenge, but they are so vulnerable that they can't go for the revenge, and they have to keep good relation with their Muslim neighbors in for their future protection. In another case, I interviewed in Bahawalpur on. I was working on a paper determinant of rising trend youth radicalization. In Bahawalpur, I interviewed, and I worked with SP Aftabullah Khan, and he was working on de-radicalization program. When I interviewed youth that was de-radicalized, they were regretting their decision of de-radicalization. They said society is not accepting us. In our society, there is no acceptability. You can, I have attended various debates where it is said that there is acceptability in Pakistani society, and there is no acceptability in our society. And in Bahawalpur region and Jhan, when I interviewed these de-radicalized youth, and they said we were trained, we were brainwashed, and we joined the camp. And later on, when we were arrested, and police trained them on de-radicalization. One good thing is that NECTA started initiative of de-radicalization program, and I work with CTD department.
And Dr. Tehmina, I'm just interrupting you because I think we're almost out of time. But another good thing is that the NACTA and the Ministry of Interior is working with people like you on these things. And another good thing is, if I may break the news, that you're also planning to run for elections in 2023 to work on all these things that you're passionate about. So I'm really very grateful that you took out the time to be here. And I think we're almost out of time. I don't think we can take any questions. So I think I'll conclude. Yeah, I'm sorry, you have a question? Yeah. Sure. If you can have a mic here.
Thank you very much for such an inspirational story. Actually, I'm wondering about two things. First of all, when you started your journey, were you alone or did you have any supporter?
Well, I started my journey from village at the age of 13 years, and it would have not been possible without the support of my father. My father was very supportive, but on the other hand, he was an obedient son as well. So
Of his mother.
Yes.
Who was not tolerant of women.
Yes,
really playing
my mother was. I always tell in my speech that a woman is the main violator of other women's right in Pakistan and all over the world. So my grandmother was not tolerant, but my father supported my journey, and he called five teachers, those who come to home for educating me initial concept. Later on, his till now everyone knows his support is immense. And even now I had to travel to Kashmir. He sent my younger brother with me for my facilitation. He knows I can't travel in public transport, so he sent. And now I just came back. My brother pressed my clothes and he said, "You just get ready," and I prepared. I have three men in my life: my two brothers and my father, and they all are immensely supportive. And I would not have been sitting here without their support. I am nothing without their support.
Great, thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much. My last question is, what was your instrument to change their belief?
What was my instrument?
Yeah, I mean, how did you change their belief that, for example, you told that I can go home late and no one.
I think you're asked. I think what she's asking is, how did you change the belief of her father and the male members of her family?
Yes.
Right? How you change how the male members of your family belonging to that village had their minds changed. Did you change it, and how do you do it?
Initially, I had to convince my father for my education. I said, okay, I will not go to school, but please call some female teacher to teach me at home. I will just appear in board exam, and so that later on, when I showed extra obedience, I was obedient, I showed patience, I controlled my anger, temperament. These things, my patience rewarded me after a few years, and I was allowed to attend co-education, Kashmir University's co-education, and my whole education after that is in co-education. My father supported me for that, but I have some convincing power as well.
Thank you very much.
Your patience work.
Yes, patience work. Patience, I always tell patience and hard work.
Yes. Great. Is there, just very quickly, we're done. Yeah, we're done. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank Dr. Waqar from Namal University and Mr. Shajat Ahmedzadeh from Azerbaijan, from an expert with the ICYR, and of course, Dr. Tehmina. Thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed Qureshi sir.